Hello and welcome to Life Al Fresco. Today we're going out into the garden just to get a sense for what's blooming, what's fruiting, and what's available this time of year. It's currently middle of June here in Southern California, and hopefully you get a sense for kind of things that we like to grow and anyway, spending time outdoors eating. So these are some of my favorite fruit this time of year. A couple of unusual things to show you today. We're going to start first with black sapote. And hey, if it's something you haven't actually seen before, don't worry about it. It's a hard fruit to find, but if you can, I think you'll like it. Um, the black sapote comes from eastern Mexico. I understand you can also find it in other places in Central America and the Caribbean. My particular black sapote is a little bit different, and anyway, we'll have a look at it a little closer here in a second. So I tried to tell you a minute ago that the color changes. So on the right-hand side is one that is absolutely not ripe, and the one here on the left-hand slide actually just fell out of the tree and is definitely ripe. Um, let's have a quick look at it a little more closely. So you can see the skin has slightly spotted. If you look at the fresh, it becomes really dark. And if you kind of see what's going on this side, you can start to see how it's really, really oozy. This is a ripe one. Um, when you taste it, it has a slight citrus flavor. Otherwise, it's kind of bland. You can tell there's a lot of sugars in there. Um, it's actually something they use to make ice creams out of. One thing we've started doing with it is using it as a substitute in making banana breads or chocolate cakes. The most recent chocolate cake recipe that we really like is you basically, instead of adding oil, we add different kind of oil. We add walnut oil. It comes out amazing. So a little sugar, egg, walnut oil, flour. That's basic ingredients, and it makes an awesome cake. Your friends will like this better than even banana bread. It's that good. Other than that, yeah, ice creams, shakes, that kind of thing. Great use for black sapote. The tree itself right now is probably 30 feet tall. My understanding is these trees can easily get 70 feet tall. I actually take mine, I prune the heck out of the top of it so it doesn't get in the way. Solar panels, it's actually right next to my house. It's kind of one of those key presentation tree right in front of the house. A lot of times people will see it and they'll kind of wonder if I've got mangoes or something in the tree. As I kind of approach it now, you'll kind of see some of the fruit in that tree just hanging in there. It kind of looks like it might be mangoes. They are about the same size as smaller mangoes, but no, it's not a mango. This is a black sapote. This particular tree is really prolific. It just has tons and tons of fruit. So much fruit, we don't, in a good year, we wouldn't know what to do with all of it. We actually freeze it and keep it for making that banana bread kind of thing that I told you about. Um, that's a really good use for it. And anyway, we freeze it. So just put it in a little baggie. The fruit itself, you saw me squish it up there. We basically cut it in half just with your hands, if you don't mind the fact that it's pudding-like, or with a spoon, just pull out the seeds that are in there. I've seen anywhere from 4 to 8 seeds in these things. Maybe I'm counting a little bit wrong, but right around there. They're kind of elongated. You can pull them out, easy to find though. And then the rest of the fruit, try to pull the skin off or scoop out the flesh, and that's what I put in Ziploc bags and throw in the freezer. So those are black sapote. I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I hope you find them somewhere out there in one of those farmers markets. So next tree here, called cherries of the Rio Grande, or Rio Grande cherry. Not a very big tree, as you can probably tell. This particular tree is probably 12 feet tall, something like that. Not very tall. Um, Grows kind of thin. So if you kind of look, you can see through the branches pretty easily. So it's not real thick, not like other trees like the black sapote I introduced you to. But it gets a lot of fruit right around this June time frame. We're probably about midway through right now. You can see a couple of them growing here, on the tree, a couple fruit. We're going to sample these things now. Basically, the way you know they're ripe is they go from some of these lighter colors, green colors, to something a little darker. So let's grab one here. So Basically, what you have is this is a fruit that's basically ripe. They can get a little bit darker than this. You can tell from my fingers. This one's probably 3/4 of an inch in diameter. They get to about an inch in diameter. They have a really interesting green kind of leafy thing growing out of the bottom. For me, basically, that's the way I hold it. So you grab it this way, and then you can eat it. Here's another view of those same cherries. You see the interesting leaves that form on the base of them as well as at the top, as I was commenting before. Anyway, again, they get up to about an inch in diameter. They're from Brazil. Just a great little tasting fruit, easy to grow. Just got to make sure that you prune it every so often. Just a quick note for those of you that care, like how do you drive fruit production? So if you are new to these plants, you've just planted one, you notice you're not getting much fruit. I think the idea really is to get more density in terms of the branches. They're kind of thin, spriggy when you first get them, like you would expect with most seedlings. So what I start doing is I start cutting off, branches, and wherever I cut them, I've noticed they basically just they separate into multiple branches. So looking at this particular tree, this year probably going to cut off here, probably cut off here, something like that, and use that as a way to cause it to basically explode at that particular point. Same thing a little bit higher up. I mentioned this thing's about 12 feet high. I don't really want it to get any higher than that. So what I'm going to look to do is basically anywhere I can where there appears to be an opportunity to cut it at maybe 8 feet high, I'm going to do that. One thing you might notice is it kind of move over here just a little bit. What it's been starting to do, you can see basically here the density. So that's about an 8 foot spot. A year or two ago, that's where I cut it, and you can see how it just starts to branch. So I'll cut it again. I'll thin out those lighter branches and keep a few of the bigger ones, and hopefully then that'll become kind of a layering effect, and I'll get even more dense branches and therefore hopefully more fruit growth. So here we are with the fruit again, Rio Grande cherry or cherries of the Rio Grande. Pop it in. Mm. Small seed you can actually grow in their plant from that, kind of like you can with the black sapote that I brought in a minute ago. Pretty good. They're really sweet. They're kind of mildly sweet. When they come in a lot at one time. Hard to actually keep up with all of them, but they are pretty tasty. So coming out here during the day, just grabbing a few of these things, popping them in your mouth. Very tasty. Very good. Recommend you try it if you ever have the chance. Again, cherries of the Rio Grande. Really tasty. You could sit out here for a few minutes just kind of gorging on these things, or throw them in the fridge. They'll last for days. Not much longer than that. They don't last that long. They kind of start to dry out and look kind of funky in the fridge, but otherwise pretty good. I imagine you could freeze them. They are pretty robust little fruit, but anyway, they don't last that long, so it's just nice to get out and eat them when you have the chance. Okay, here we go. This is the last one for the day. What do we have available here in June? Well, we're starting to get Maywa kumquats. So here's a few of them. Looks like here's another ripe one. So I'll have a taste of this one. Let's try it. Sweet. As you could tell, I didn't even bother peeling that thing. No need. They are sweet. They are so good. Basically, you just pop in your mouth, eat them. That's why I like these ones so much. They're sweeter than the other one they called Nagumi, I think. Maywa ones are just awesome. So I've picked some of that fruit that we talked about just a few minutes ago. In front of me, I've got ripe black sapotes. I've got a few Maywa kumquats. I got a couple bowls here of the cherries of the Rio Grande. And then for some acid, I grabbed one of these, Golden Nugget, that's what it is. And I also grabbed a few key limes. So what I'm going to do here is three things. First thing I'm going to do is out of the black sapote, I'm going to make a banana bread recipe. Out of the cherries of the Rio Grande, we're going to make basically a coulis to go on top of that banana bread. And then I thought for fun we'd throw in a few of these kumquats, and I'll slice up thin and make candied kumquats out of them. So let's start the process and see. Okay, here we are. Basically, the first thing we're going to make is black sapote, the banana bread version. But instead of using bananas, we're going to use a couple of these. I'll come back to these in a minute so you see what it looks like to fix those. Recipe is really simple. Have a look on the internet. It's all recipes, so thanks to those guys. It's really simple. Starting with flour. There's a couple of cups here. From there, we've got a little bit of baking soda. Baking soda, there's going to be basically a teaspoon of that. I'll put the link, by the way, for the recipe in the notes below. We use salt, so I've got the salt here. From there, we're also going to use a half a cup of butter, so I've got a stick for that. We're going to use brown sugar. Unfortunately, no brown sugar. It's something we use a lot out, but you can make it. It's really kind of simple. To make the equivalent of light brown sugar, you take 1 cup, for example, of white granulated sugar, and you add 1 teaspoon or tablespoons of molasses. So somewhere here, I got the molasses. So I'm going to be using the molasses inside the white sugar to make that brown sugar. We'll see how it comes out. Usually love the recipe, so we'll see if I still love the recipe when it's done. Other than that, we have also got eggs. In my case, we have our own chickens, and so I've got a couple of eggs for that. Okay, so here we are with the black sapote, and I'm starting to break it up here. I'm just pulling off the top of the black sapote. Anyway, you're going to see really quickly why they call this the chocolate pudding fruit. It is particularly puddingy. You can see there. Just break this up a little bit. You can use a knife if you want to, a spoon. But anyway, you want to take, you can eat the skin. The skin doesn't really do much. I don't know, for some reason I always take it off. There are some seeds inside, just to give you a sense of what those seeds are like. So I'm going to pull out one now. Here you go, 1 brown seed with some black sapote goo attached to my finger. There could be, half dozen or more of these things. I guess I can count them right now and tell you, but my recollection is something like that. So you just want to feel around, so you remove them. So that's it for the black sapote. That's all you got to do is basically remove those seeds, maybe scoop out the middle, and then we'll add that in and we'll be just about ready.
So here we go, we're kind of scooping it out of the skin. It comes out kind of like a scoop of ice cream, and we're a little bit stiff pudding, and there you go. That's all it takes. Just put those down in. So coming back to the flavor, people were asking, so you can see that I have scooped up this thing again. There's like chocolate pudding all over. Here's the fruit. This way it looks so much like chocolate, I think it's partially menthol.
Seems to almost taste like chocolate, but really not that sweet. It's a little sweet. Maybe a little bit of paste flavor, kind of like a dry banana, something like that. Yeah, I really like that. Maybe that's why it goes so well in bread. So one other thing I forgot to mention in terms of that recipe, I'm going to cheat and do something a little bit different. I'm actually putting a little bit of cocoa powder in that recipe, and that'll be the final. I'll put about a half cup for a single recipe. And so anyway, that's what it's going to be. So I'm just going to finish up with the black sapote here now that I'm cleaning up my spoon and so forth. Anyway, we'll put it in the oven here in just a second. So just about ready to go now. I'm just buttering and flouring the typical loaf pan that I use. Anyway, you can see this here. I don't know, it's 5 by 9, something like that, maybe 2.5, 3 inches deep, something like that. Anyway, first thing I did was coat the inside with a stick of butter. Kind of carefully just pushed it against the sides, basted everything. And then I put a little bit of flour in here, and I've been shuffling it around so it coats all the sides. The idea there, pretty simple. When it bakes, it doesn't stick, and pops right out. So I will be loading up here now the black sapote batter, and should be good here in just a second. Anyway, as you go through this, if you have any questions, don't forget to just let me know, send me a note, and happy to respond. One other thing that also is pretty good in these loaves is putting a little bit of chocolate chips as well. You heard about the cocoa powder that I added to that recipe, but a little bit of chocolate chips. Not a lot of them, just a few of them, because every once in a while you run into one. It's really good. So that's it. So that's the black sapote banana bread type recipe. Anyway, I hope you like it. Okay, next thing we're going to do basically is candy these kumquats. So again, the idea here, have a look at this. That's about the size. They're about an inch in diameter, something like that. And it's basically going to take them and I'm going to slice them up, thinly more or less. Going to do it slightly at an angle to take advantage of the longest axis here. But anyway, basically cut them nice and thin, and it doesn't make a lot. So just to give you an idea, I'm basically going to take something like that. That's going to be one, and I'll do all these, and we're going to be basically making that candied kumquat. Simple recipe. Essentially, it is simple sugar is what you're cooking them in. Essentially, that's really it. And we'll come back to that once we get there. Let me chop these ones up, and we'll get that going. Okay, here we are. We're now in front of the simple syrup. So idea here is we're going to basically get this up to temperature. Okay, here's in spatula. So basically to get this up to temperature, and then the idea is going to be that we throw kumquats in here, and we'll leave them in here until they've candied up, which should only be a few minutes. So let's see how we go. So we've been going now probably 90 seconds or so. It's smelling awesome. The vanilla extract actually you can just kind of wafts in the air with the heat. The mixture obviously looks a little brown. The sugar's dissolved. The honey still has bringing that color to it. I'm just going to continue here for a couple minutes as they suggest, and then I'll pull them off, kind of strain them off, stick them in a pan. Then I'm going to try to reduce that syrup a bit, and then pour them over at the very end. I'll show you the final product when it's done. Okay, here we are. So basically, I'm at the point of making the coulis. So here's the fruit. Interesting, notice the color. Flesh actually is a little orange. Interesting, I never noticed that before. So this is the cherries of the Rio Grande. To that, I'm going to be adding a little bit of sugar, maybe a little water if it needs to be thinner, but then when I need a little acid. So they suggest actually lemon juice. Lemons aren't ripe at the moment, so I've got, again, those key limes, and I thought it'd be interesting if I put a little bit of a tangerine juice in there. So that's my substitute, and I'm going to make that up, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, here we go. We're going to be making the coulis now, so let's see what happens. Need to go a little bit longer. I don't know if you can see this. It's still kind of chunky. I'm going to add the sugar now, and we'll keep going. I tried it. It is a little bit sweet for my taste. I like coulis a little more balanced than that, so I'm just going to take it and squeeze these two other limes in there, and hopefully that acid will kind of balance the flavor a little bit. Let's try it out here. So that's two. Beautiful color. Just great color actually, and great texture. Actually looks kind of smooth and creamy. Yeah, that's really nice. That's really good. Okay, made the coulis, stuck it in a nice squeeze bottle, looking pretty good. You can see how liquidy it is. That's going to go on the bread when we're ready. Also have made the candied kumquats. They are pretty tasty. If you know kumquat, that's what they taste like. A little bit of caramelized sugar on them for heating them up that way. Anyway, pretty good. Okay, here we are. I have just taken the black sapote bread out of the oven. It's been about an hour, just over an hour. And I've been testing it along the way. I've been using those fine toothpick picks to do that. Anyway, this is what it looks like at this stage. There we go. Looks pretty good. Nothing sticking to that toothpick, so we're going to let it cool off a bit, and then a little bit later we're going to try it out. Hopefully it comes out really well. Okay, we're done. We've got the full dish now. So I think I just showed you a quick scene. This is what it looks like. In case you're wondering, there's the black sapote bread where I cheated, put a little cocoa powder in there. Next to it is the candied kumquat, and next to that is the Rio Grande cherry, or cherries of the Rio Grande coulis. So again, in terms of making that Rio Grande cherry coulis, it's basically just them, a bit of sugar, and rather than adding water in that recipe that I showed you, what I did instead was I just used a little bit more in terms of acid. I used tangerine juice, and which is what I had, and some key limes, which I had. I didn't have lemon, so I used a little bit extra of that. I think the tangerine juice kind of made up for the water, and flavor-wise, it's pretty good. So really quickly here, I'm going to grab a bite. I'm going to cop a little piece of the black sapote bread, put a little bit of that, the coulis on that, and see how that is. So here we go, looking pretty tasty. That's nice. The black sapote bread is really creamy. Like a really creamy cake, actually. Texture-wise, really nice. I called it banana bread before because it really is. It's really kind of chewy, tasty like that. Yeah, and there's another bite. Actually, you can taste a little bit of that brown sugary flavor. And as you remember, I cheated. I didn't have the brown sugar, so I made my own. And remember that ratio was 1 cup of regular granulated sugar to 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of molasses to simulate that light brown sugar. Yeah, actually, it's pretty good. The coulis itself is pretty tasty. Here I am. I'm gonna fork up a little bit. Just the coulis, nice flavor. You do get the citrus from what I added, so it's nicely acidic. There's still a little bit of sweetness, very, very fruity. So, it's worth doing. Now let's have a quick taste of the candied kumquat. So here we go. You see they're nicely coated, pretty gorgeous actually. It has a beautiful orange color all the way through. It really looks candied. Again, sweet but tart, nice. Those of you who haven't tried marinating things with kumquat juice before, really has a nice flavor, and it's really coming through here in the candied ones. Yeah, I could eat this. This would be really awesome on vanilla ice cream for those of you who like that kind of thing. So there you go. Pretty good flavor. One last taste of the coulis, this time with the candied. Yeah, it's really nice. So the acidity from the coulis, the sweetness from the candied kumquats, great combination. So anyway, there you have it. My very first pick and cook rather than cash and cook came out pretty well. Just headed out to the garden, picked a few things that we had out there, created something out of it. Very good. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed listening to that. I had fun making it, and of course I'm having fun eating that. I'm sort of go back to that now. Anyway, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining Life Al Fresco.